Everyone at our table laughed when my fiancé made me the punchline. The man beside us did not. That was the first thing I remembered clearly about the night everything changed. Not the crystal chandelier above Bellamy's. Not the Manhattan lights reflected in the rain outside. Not even the diamond on my left hand. I remembered the stranger who refused to laugh. My name is Emily Carter. I was 28, a junior interior designer, and engaged to Ryan Prescott, a man I had spent 3 years convincing myself understood me better than anyone. That night, we were celebrating one of his business deals with 2 of his associates, Mark and Allison. Ryan had chosen the restaurant. He had chosen the wine. He had even chosen my dress after telling me the blue one I preferred looked too ordinary for Bellamy's. So I changed. I always changed. Tell them about your first apartment, Ryan said, smiling across the table. I looked up from my water. Why? Because it was adorable. Mark laughed before Ryan even finished. How small was it? Ryan asked. About 600 square feet. 612, I corrected. See? Ryan grinned. She remembers every square foot because she had to make all 12 of them count. Mark laughed again. Allison smiled politely. I did too. That was easier. Ryan rested a hand on the back of my chair. Emily has always been good at making little spaces look expensive. I design functional spaces, I said. Of course. He turned toward Mark. She gets very serious about pillows. Another laugh. My fingers tightened around the stem of my water glass. We just received approval for a children's reading room in Brooklyn, I said. Allison's expression brightened. That sounds wonderful. It is. We are restoring the original windows and adding built-in reading benches along the east wall. Emily. Ryan sighed. Nobody wants a design lecture during dinner. I stopped. You asked about my work. I was joking. There it was. His favorite escape hatch. I was joking. It usually came immediately after something that made me feel small. And if I objected, the next sentence was always predictable. Do not be so sensitive. I looked away before he could say it. That was when I noticed the next table. 4 men sat there. 3 spoke quietly. The 4th was watching Ryan. He looked about 36, with dark hair, pale skin, and gray eyes that seemed almost silver beneath the amber lights. His black suit was simple enough to miss if you did not know what expensive tailoring looked like. A glass sat untouched beside his hand. The strange thing was not his appearance. It was the room around him. The manager had personally visited his table twice. A server replaced his water before the glass was half empty. The men beside him seemed to wait whenever he moved, as if his silence had more authority than their conversation. I did not know his name. I only knew he had heard everything. And he was not smiling. Anyway, Ryan continued, Emily does fine for herself. I do more than fine. The words escaped before I could soften them. Ryan looked at me. See? Sensitive. Mark glanced down. Allison stopped smiling. Heat climbed into my face. For years, I had thought humiliation needed cruelty to count. I was beginning to understand it could arrive wearing a tailored suit and a charming smile. Ryan lifted his wine. Relax, sweetheart. You have a good life because of me. Nobody answered. Across the aisle came a quiet click as the stranger set down his glass. His gray eyes met mine. There was no pity in them. Somehow that mattered. Everyone at my table had learned to pretend Ryan was joking. The stranger had not. Ryan must have felt the silence because his smile tightened before he reached for his wine. Anyway, none of this will matter after the wedding. I looked at him. None of what? The commute. The library project. Running around Brooklyn with fabric samples. He said it casually, like he was reminding me about plans we had already made. What are you talking about? Ryan glanced at Mark and Allison, then gave me that patient smile he used whenever he wanted other people to believe I was being difficult. Emily, we discussed this. No. You said I would have more time after we got married. I never said I was quitting my job. You will not need to work. That is not the same as not wanting to work. Allison shifted in her chair. Mark suddenly became interested in his wine glass. Ryan leaned closer. Can we not do this here? I almost laughed. He had spent the entire evening discussing my apartment, my salary, and my career in front of everyone. Apparently, my opinion was the only thing that required privacy. You brought it up here. Because I thought you understood what our life would look like. Our life. I had heard those words 100 times. That night, for the first time, I realized Ryan usually meant his life, with me fitted neatly inside it. Then explain it to me. His jaw tightened. My clients have wives who attend dinners, charity events, weekends in the Hamptons. I cannot keep explaining why my wife is missing because she is choosing paint colors in Brooklyn. I do more than choose paint colors. There you go again. Doing what? Taking everything personally. I heard the quiet clink of glass from the next table. I refused to look toward the stranger. I did not want him watching this. Then another thought stopped me. Why was I embarrassed that someone could see how Ryan treated me instead of being angry that Ryan treated me that way? Something inside me became very still. I am not quitting, I said. Ryan stared at me. Excuse me. My job. I am keeping it. The candle between us flickered. Allison looked directly at me now. Ryan lowered his voice. We will discuss this at home. We are discussing it now. His expression hardened. Do you have any idea how good you have it? I said nothing. Before me, you were living in Queens, counting every dollar and taking the subway to an entry-level design job. I introduced you to people. I brought you into rooms you never would have entered alone. My throat tightened, but my voice stayed calm. And you could show some gratitude. I did. Ryan paused. Did? I looked down at the diamond on my left hand. Ryan had chosen the ring without asking what style I liked. At the time, I had called it romantic. Now I wondered how many decisions I had renamed love simply because admitting the truth would have been harder. Ryan gave a short, humorless laugh. Emily, be realistic. You should be grateful. Someone like me wants to marry you. Nobody moved. Mark looked down. Allison's face went still. Even Ryan seemed to realize, 1 second too late, that he had finally said the quiet part out loud. I slid the ring from my finger. My hand trembled once. Then it stopped. I placed the diamond beside his wine glass. Ryan stared at it. What are you doing? I picked up my purse. Making one decision without asking your permission. Emily. I stood. Sit down. No. His eyes widened. Do not make a scene. I looked at the ring between us. Then at the man I had spent 3 years trying not to disappoint. You wanted someone grateful enough to become whatever you needed. I stepped away from the table. Then marry someone who is. I turned toward the exit. Behind me, Ryan's chair moved. Emily, do not walk away from me. I kept going. Then his voice followed me across the restaurant. You are embarrassing me. Before I could turn around, a calm voice came from the next table. No, you managed that all by yourself. The stranger did not raise his voice. Somehow, that made everyone hear him more clearly. Ryan turned toward the next table, irritation flashing across his face. Then he saw the man properly, and the irritation disappeared. I noticed it immediately. Ryan knew him. Excuse me, Ryan asked. The stranger remained seated, one hand beside his untouched glass. You heard me. The 3 men at his table stopped talking. Mark looked down. Allison watched Ryan carefully. Even the manager near the bar seemed suddenly aware of our corner of the restaurant. Ryan straightened his jacket. This is a private conversation. The stranger glanced around the dining room. You stopped making it private a while ago. Heat rose into my face. I tightened my grip on my purse and continued toward the exit. I did not need another man speaking for me. Emily, Ryan called. I kept walking. Emily, stop. I turned. I am going home. Fine. We will talk in the car. There is nothing left to discuss. Ryan stepped closer, stopping several feet away. Do not be dramatic. There it was again. Another word designed to make my reaction the problem instead of his behavior. I am not being dramatic. I am leaving. You are throwing away 3 years because of one bad dinner. I looked at him and felt something inside me finally settle. No, I am admitting this was never just one dinner. Ryan stared at me. For the first time that night, I saw panic beneath his confidence. His eyes moved toward the stranger. Stay out of this, Moretti. Moretti. The name meant nothing to me then. The reaction around the room told me it meant something to everyone else. The stranger finally stood. He was taller than I expected, maybe 6 feet 3 inches, his black suit perfectly fitted, his movements unhurried. He stopped far enough away that I never felt trapped between them. She said she is leaving, he said. Ryan gave a short laugh. And what business is that of yours? None, if you let her. She is my fiancé. Was, I said. Both men looked at me. My heart was pounding, but the word felt cleaner than anything I had said all evening. Ryan glanced toward the ring on the table. Emily, stop this. I already did. You are upset. I am clear. That seemed to bother him more. Ryan turned toward Moretti. You do not know anything about her. The stranger's gray eyes shifted to me. That is true. His honesty caught me off guard. Ryan scoffed. Then why are you standing there pretending to be her hero? I am not. Really? Because that is exactly what this looks like. Moretti's expression remained calm. It looks like a woman made a decision and you refuse to hear it. Ryan glanced around, suddenly conscious of every person watching him. You think because people are afraid of you, you can walk into my relationship and decide what happens? No. Moretti paused. She already decided. Something about those 3 words steadied me. Ryan had spent years making my choices sound temporary until he approved them. This stranger had known me for less than an hour and understood that my answer belonged to me. Ryan shook his head. What? You think she belongs with you instead? The restaurant seemed to go silent. Moretti looked at Ryan, then at me. His expression changed, becoming colder, more deliberate. When he spoke, 4 words fell between us. She is mine now. My stomach dropped. For 1 second, I wondered if I had misunderstood everything about him. Ryan went completely still. Mark stared. Allison's eyes widened. Moretti turned toward me. I stepped closer, lifted my chin, and met those gray eyes without looking away. No, I said. I am not. For the first time all evening, Dominic Moretti looked genuinely surprised. For 3 seconds, Dominic said nothing. The entire restaurant seemed to wait with me. Then something almost like amusement touched his expression. Fair enough. I blinked. Fair enough. You said you were not mine. His gray eyes remained on mine. I heard you. Then he stepped aside. No argument. No explanation. No attempt to turn my refusal into another conversation I had to win. He simply cleared the path between me and the entrance. Then go. Something inside me shifted. Ryan had claimed to love me for 3 years, yet every no I gave him became the beginning of a negotiation. Dominic Moretti had known me for less than an hour, had just said the most possessive thing anyone had ever said to me, and somehow accepted my refusal the first time. I did not know what to do with that contradiction. Emily, Ryan called behind me. I picked up my purse and walked away. Emily, wait. I did not. The restaurant doors opened, and cold October air rushed over me. Rain shimmered beneath the Manhattan streetlights, turning the pavement into ribbons of red and gold. I stopped beneath the awning and pulled out my phone. Ryan had driven us from his apartment, so I ordered a ride home to Queens. 11 minutes away. I folded my arms against the 48-degree air and realized my coat was still inside. Perfect. The door opened behind me. My shoulders tightened. If you came out here to tell me what I should do next, save your breath. I came out because you forgot this. Dominic held my beige wool coat over one arm. I stared at it. How did you get that? The woman from your table brought it to the door. Allison. I took the coat. Thank you. You are welcome. He turned toward the curb. I should have let him leave. Instead, I heard myself ask, why did you say it? Dominic stopped. Say what? You know? Exactly what? His expression became thoughtful. Because Prescott was not listening to you. So you decided to sound exactly like him? The question landed. I saw it in the brief stillness of his face. Apparently, I did. You do not know me. No. You do not get to decide who I belong to. Agreed. I stared at him. You are surprisingly difficult to argue with. That is not a complaint I receive often. Despite myself, I almost smiled. A black sedan stopped at the curb. A driver stepped out and opened the rear door, but Dominic remained beneath the awning. Why interfere at all? I asked. His gaze moved through the restaurant window. Ryan was visible inside, speaking urgently to Mark. Because everyone at your table knew you were uncomfortable, and everyone decided keeping dinner pleasant mattered more than saying something. He looked back at me. I dislike cowardice disguised as manners. My phone buzzed. My ride was 6 minutes away. Dominic glanced at the screen. I can wait until your car arrives. I can wait alone. A pause. All right. Again. No resistance. No wounded pride. Just acceptance. He stepped toward the sedan. Dominic. He turned. How does Ryan know you? Something changed in his eyes. Ask him. I am asking you. Then ask yourself why a man who spent all evening performing for the room stopped performing the moment he heard my name. Before I could answer, Dominic entered the sedan. The car disappeared into Manhattan traffic. My phone buzzed again. Allison, please tell me when you get home safely. Then another message appeared. There is something you should know before Ryan calls you. His company needs Moretti's approval on the Hudson deal. I stared at the screen while rain whispered against the awning. Suddenly, Ryan's pale expression inside Bellamy's made sense. He had not been afraid that Dominic was interested in me. He had been afraid of what Dominic could do to his future. I slept for less than 3 hours that night. Not because I wanted Ryan back. That was the strange part. I kept waiting for heartbreak, but what arrived instead was clarity. I remembered every dinner where he corrected me in front of people, every party, where he introduced me as his future wife before mentioning my name, every argument that somehow ended with me apologizing because my feelings had made him uncomfortable. By 7:30 the next morning, I was sitting at my kitchen table in Queens with cold coffee and my laptop open. Dominic Moretti's name led to a carefully polished trail of business articles. Moretti Holdings, commercial real estate, private lending, shipping investments, charitable foundations. Everything looked legitimate, expensive, and deliberately boring. Yet there were gaps around the man himself. Reporters described influence without explaining its source. Business profiles mentioned that the Moretti name carried weight in New York, but nobody seemed eager to explain why. Allison's message bothered me more. Ryan's company needed Dominic's approval on the Hudson deal. At 8:12, Ryan called. I declined it. He called again. By 9, I had 8 missed calls. At 9:41, someone knocked on my apartment door. I looked through the peephole. Ryan stood in the hallway wearing yesterday's suit and holding my engagement ring. I opened the door, but left the chain secured. What do you want? We need to talk. No, we do not. Emily, please. This is about Moretti. I stopped. What about him? Ryan glanced down the hallway. Can I come inside? No. He closed his eyes. Fine. Moretti Holdings financed part of the Hudson development 18 months ago. We missed 2 deadlines. We need an extension, and Dominic controls whether we get it. Then ask him. Ryan stared at me. I need you to help. I almost laughed. Me? He noticed you. My stomach tightened. Do not do this. Emily, listen. Dominic Moretti does not involve himself in strangers' personal problems. He spoke to you. He followed you outside. He returned my coat. Exactly. Ryan lowered his voice. Have coffee with him. Dinner. Whatever it takes to get him talking. Ask for the extension. For several seconds, I could only stare at the man I had nearly married. Yesterday, my career was a joke. Today, I am useful because another man looked at me. That is not what I meant. It is exactly what you meant. Hundreds of jobs could depend on this. There it was. Ryan taking something selfish and wrapping it in respectable language. No. His expression hardened. You do not understand what is at stake. I understand perfectly. I reached toward the door. Ryan lifted the ring. At least take this. Keep it. Emily. Goodbye, Ryan. I closed the door and locked it. My hands did not shake. 3 hours later, I was at work reviewing lighting plans for the Brooklyn Library when our receptionist appeared beside my desk. Emily, there is a gentleman asking for you. My stomach dropped. Ryan. No. She handed me a plain white business card. Dominic Moretti. Only his name and a phone number. I walked toward reception and found him studying the library renderings on the wall. His gray eyes met mine. How did you know where I work? I asked. Your company identification badge was clipped inside the coat you left at Bellamy's. Simple. Plausible. Somehow, that relieved me. If Ryan sent you, you can leave. Dominic's expression changed. Prescott came to you? This morning. He wants me to convince you to save the Hudson deal. Silence. Interesting. What is? Last night he treated you like an inconvenience. This morning he discovered you might be useful. My jaw tightened. And you do not intend to use me too? Dominic looked directly at me. No. Then prove it. He waited. I took a breath. Whatever exists between you and Ryan, whatever happens with the Hudson deal, leave me out of it. Dominic did not negotiate. He did not ask what he would receive in return. He simply nodded. Done. One word. Immediate. Final. And I hated how much that simple respect unsettled me. Done. I repeated. Dominic gave a single nod. You asked to be left out of my business with Prescott. You will be. I studied him, waiting for the condition. There had always been a condition with Ryan. Every favor carried an invisible price. Every gift could become evidence in a future argument. Even apologies somehow ended with me owing him forgiveness. Dominic simply stood beneath the bright office lights, surrounded by children's library renderings and material samples, as if my request had settled the matter completely. Then why did you come here? I asked. His eyes moved briefly toward the drawings behind me. To apologize. That caught me off guard. For what? For what I said last night. I folded my arms. Be specific. Something almost amused passed through his expression. I had no right to speak about you as though you belonged to me. The apology came without a defense attached to it. I was not prepared for that. Then why did you say it? Dominic glanced toward reception, where two coworkers were pretending not to watch us. Is there somewhere more private? I led him into the small conference room and closed the door. He waited until I sat before taking the chair across from me. Well, I asked. Prescott was not listening to you. So you used language he would understand. Yes. Possession. Status, Dominic said quietly, then paused. But from where you were standing, I imagine there was very little difference. I stared at him. There was none. Then I was wrong. For words. No explanation about his intentions. No reminder that he had helped me. No demand that I appreciate what he had done. Ryan always had a reason why I should not be upset. I said before I could stop myself. Dominic's expression sharpened. I am not Ryan. I noticed. Silence settled between us. Outside the glass wall, phones rang and keyboards clicked. What language do you understand, Dominic? I asked. His eyebrow lifted. Apparently. He leaned back slightly. Yours. A laugh escaped me. Real and sudden. Dominic looked almost surprised by it. What? I asked. Nothing. You were staring. I was noticing the difference. Between what? The way you laugh now and the way you laughed at dinner. My smile faded. Do not analyze me. Understood. I studied him for another second. And do not send me expensive gifts. I had not planned to. Do not send a car for me. All right. Do not call anyone about my job, my apartment, or Ryan because you think you are helping. Agreed. And do not have people watching me. His expression became serious. I will not. I waited, almost suspicious of how easily he accepted every boundary. You make being told no look very simple. Dominic looked toward the window. For the first time since I met him, something tired entered his expression. It should be simple. For you too, especially for me. I had not expected that. Why? He was quiet for a moment. Because power creates a dangerous kind of silence. People stop disagreeing with you. They stop correcting you. Eventually, a man can become foolish enough to believe silence means permission. The word stayed with me. And have you? I asked. His gray eyes returned to mine. Become that foolish? Yes. A faint smile touched his mouth. More than once. I should have found that answer unsettling. Instead, his willingness to admit it made him seem more human. Dominic stood and buttoned his coat. I should let you work. He reached the conference room door. Dominic. He turned. Across the street, through the office windows, I could see a small coffee shop glowing beneath a red awning. I had no sensible reason to say what came next. There is a coffee shop across the street. His attention sharpened. Is that an invitation? It is 1 cup of coffee. Those are different things. I smiled despite myself. 5:30. Dominic opened the door. 5:30. Then he stopped and looked back. Emily. Yes. Your table or mine? I held his gaze. Mine. At 5:28, I was sitting at the smallest table in the coffee shop, wondering why I had invited Dominic Moretti into another hour of my life. At 5:29, the door opened. He walked in alone. No driver behind him. No men in dark suits. No entrance designed to make everyone notice. Just Dominic in a charcoal overcoat carrying 2 paper cups. He stopped beside my table and placed one in front of me. I realize you said you would choose the table. You said nothing about the coffee. I looked at the cup. How do you know what I drink? I do not. He sat across from me. That is why yours is black. I took 1 sip and made a face. I hate black coffee. Then I have already failed. Spectacularly. His mouth curved. Good. That saves time. I added cream and 2 sugars while he watched evening traffic move beyond the window. For someone whose presence could silence a restaurant. Dominic seemed unusually comfortable with quiet. Ryan never had been. Silence with Ryan always needed filling, usually with his voice. So, I said, what does Dominic Moretti talk about when nobody owes him money? Architecture. I stared at him. Seriously? Buildings tell you what people value. That sounds exactly like something a real estate investor would say. And an interior designer does not believe spaces matter? They matter enormously. Then we agree on something. We talked for more than an hour. Old Manhattan buildings. Neighborhood bookstores. Terrible office lighting. Why expensive apartments seemed terrified of color. He asked about the Brooklyn Library and listened while I explained the children's reading room without once making my work sound small. When we finally stood, He did not offer me a ride. Good night, Emily. That was all. It should have made him easier to forget. It did not. Over the next 2 weeks, I saw him 4 times. Every invitation arrived as a question. Coffee, lunch, a walk through Bryant Park? Every answer remained mine. Then, one Tuesday morning, an enormous arrangement of white roses arrived at my office. I stared at it for 10 seconds before calling Dominic. These are ridiculous. A pause. You dislike roses? I dislike receiving enough flowers to decorate a wedding. Understood. I am sending them back. Also understood. The next day there were no flowers. At noon, however, Dominic appeared outside my building holding one ordinary paper cup. Cream and 2 sugars, he said. I accepted it cautiously. You remembered. I learned from failure. Slowly. Painfully. I smiled. Somewhere between those conversations, I stopped thinking of him as the stranger from Bellamy's. I noticed smaller things instead. He remembered servers' names. He put his phone away when I spoke. He never interrupted. And when I disagreed with him, he listened instead of treating disagreement as disrespect. One Friday evening, after dinner at a small Italian restaurant in Midtown, he walked with me toward the subway. I stopped near the entrance. You know you cannot buy me, right? Dominic's expression became serious. Yes. Not with restaurants. Not with flowers. Not with favors. I know. Then what do you want? For once, he did not answer immediately. People moved around us beneath the city lights. Finally, he said, a chance to know you without deciding what happens next. My breath caught. It was not a grand declaration. Maybe that was why I believed it. My phone buzzed before I reached the subway stairs. Ryan's name appeared on the screen for the first time in 2 weeks. I opened the message. I hope you are enjoying more Eddie's attention, Emily. By Monday, everyone will know why you really left me. I read it twice. When I looked up, Dominic was still standing 20 feet away, waiting only long enough to make sure I reached the station safely. For the first time since Bellamy's, I understood that Ryan was no longer trying to get me back. He was trying to punish me for leaving. By Monday morning, Ryan had kept his promise. The first message arrived before 8 from a former coworker asking whether I was all right. The second came from my cousin. At 8:43, Allison sent me a screenshot from a private real estate industry group. Ryan had not accused me of anything directly. He was smarter than that. He used phrases like inappropriate relationship, personal influence, and suspicious timing. Just enough suggestion to let other people invent the ugliest version of the story for him. By 9, my supervisor, Diane, appeared beside my desk. Conference room. Please. My stomach tightened. Inside, she closed the door and placed her phone on the table. I do not care who you date, Emily. I was not dating Dominic when I left Ryan. I believe you. I looked up. Diane folded her arms. But one of the Hudson development partners contacted us this morning. They are asking whether your connection to Moretti influenced our separate Brooklyn library contract. For a second, I could not breathe normally. Ryan had found the one thing he knew I would defend harder than my pride. My work. It did not. Then we document that. Those 4 words steadied me. I spent the next 3 hours building a timeline. Emails. Calendar entries. Proposal approvals. Meeting notes. Everything showing that our library project had been approved before I ever spoke to Dominic. At 12:17, my phone rang. Dominic. I answered. I heard. Of course he had. Then you know I am busy. His voice was quieter than usual. Give me 1 hour. For what? I can end this. I closed my eyes. 2 weeks earlier, that sentence might have sounded like rescue. Now it sounded like another choice I needed to make for myself. No. Silence. Emily. No, Dominic. He is damaging your professional reputation. I know. And I have information that would make people stop listening to him. I stood and walked toward the conference room window. That is exactly why you cannot help me. Explain. Ryan is telling people I traded him for a more powerful man. If you step in and solve this for me, what will everyone see? Dominic said nothing. They will see a woman hiding behind Dominic Moretti. That is not what you would be doing. Maybe not. But I need to know I can handle this myself. A long pause followed. Then Dominic exhaled. All right. I almost smiled. That easy. Not even slightly. But you will stay out of it. If that is what you want. It is. Another pause. Then this one is yours. The words settled somewhere deep. This one is yours. Not you or mine. The problem. The choice. The outcome. Mine. By 3:30, Diane and I found what we needed. 6 months earlier, Ryan had emailed me asking whether my firm could introduce his company to members of the library redevelopment committee. I had refused because it violated company conflict policy. His own message proved that he knew my work on the project existed long before Dominic entered my life. Better yet, it showed who had actually tried to use a personal relationship for professional advantage. Diane forwarded the documented timeline to the partners who had contacted our firm. Then I sent Ryan one message. Correct every false implication you made about me by 5 o'clock. If you do not, I will turn the documented timeline over to counsel. At 4:39, the first correction appeared. By 5, there were 3. Ryan never apologized. I discovered I did not need him to. When I left the office, Dominic was waiting across the street beside the coffee shop. Alone. No flowers. No black sedan at the curb. Just 2 paper cups. I crossed toward him. You heard? I heard. And you did nothing? His gray eyes held mine. That was significantly harder than you seem to appreciate. I laughed. He handed me my coffee. Cream and 2 sugars. Perfect. Thank you. For the coffee? For listening. Dominic looked at me for a long moment. You never needed me to save you, Emily. I looked back at the office building where I had walked in terrified that morning. I think I needed to prove that to myself. He nodded. Then he asked the way he always did now, leaving the answer entirely with me. Walk with me. I took one sip of coffee and smiled. Yes. Nearly 3 months later, Dominic asked me to dinner, and the moment I saw the address, I understood why he had waited so long to choose that restaurant. Bellamy's. I stood beneath the same awning where I had once waited alone in the October rain, except now December snow drifted through the Manhattan lights, and I was not the same woman who had walked out those doors. For a moment, I considered choosing somewhere else. Then I smiled at myself and went inside. Dominic was already waiting. Same gray eyes. Same quiet presence. But this time, when he saw me, he stood and simply said, You came. You sound surprised. I was prepared for you to choose another restaurant. I almost did. He pulled out the chair, then waited until I chose to sit. That tiny pause made me smile. Why here? I asked. Dominic sat across from me. Because you deserve a memory of this place that does not belong to Prescott. That is dangerously sentimental. Keep your voice down. I have a reputation. I laughed. Dinner felt completely different from the first one. Nobody commented on what I ordered. Nobody corrected the way I described my work. When I told Dominic the children's reading room had received final approval, he asked about the lighting plan, the bookshelves, even the window seating I had redesigned. He listened. That still mattered more than flowers ever could. When dessert arrived, there was no diamond hidden beneath a silver cover. No dramatic surprise. Just chocolate cake and coffee, cream, and 2 sugars in mine. I looked across the table. Do you remember what you said the first night we were here? Dominic's expression changed immediately. Unfortunately. Say it. I would rather not. Dominic. He sighed. I said you were mine. You were wrong. Completely. I smiled. You really are getting better at this. I had a demanding teacher. Snow gathered against the windows while the restaurant hummed quietly around us. Dominic looked down at his coffee. I learned something that night. What? I thought power meant being able to make Prescott stop. He lifted his eyes to mine. You taught me that sometimes power means knowing when to step aside. My throat tightened. You taught me something too. I did. Protection and control are not the same thing. His expression softened. Emily, I never want you to stay because you think you owe me. I know. Not because of my name. Not because of money. Not because people move out of my way when I enter a room. I reached across the table and placed my hand over his. Dominic went still. Nearly 3 months earlier, he had made a declaration about me without asking. Tonight, he waited even when my hand was already touching his. That difference was everything. Ryan spent years making me believe being chosen by him was some kind of prize, I said. After I left, I thought independence meant never needing anyone. And now I think it means nobody decides who stands beside me except me. Dominic turned his hand beneath mine, but stopped before closing his fingers around it. I smiled. You can hold my hand. His fingers gently closed around mine. Thank you for the authorization. I laughed. Do not ruin this. I am trying very hard. I looked around Bellamy's. The first time I sat here, I measured every sentence by whether Ryan would approve. Tonight, I was not measuring anything. Dominic. Yes. I choose you. He became completely still. The man whose name could silence a room seemed to lose every prepared word. Emily, that does not mean you own me. A quiet smile appeared. I learned that lesson. I squeezed his hand. Good. Outside, snow fell over Manhattan, softening the city into white and gold. I once thought love meant being lucky enough to be chosen by someone powerful. I was wrong. Love was having enough dignity to walk away when someone made you smaller, enough courage to stand alone when standing alone was frightening, and enough freedom to choose who had earned the right to walk beside you.